The SAS is the Special Forces regiment upon which all others are based. Few are tough enough to pass selection. But what does it take to survive once you make it into the Special Air Service? Using a series of dramatic scenarios, a team of hardened ex-SAS veterans have agreed to reveal the survival secrets that kept them alive. The commander of our four-man patrol is former SAS Sergeant Eddie Stone. With him is demolitions expert John McAleese, the first man on the balcony in the Iranian embassy siege. Additional firepower and expertise is provided by Johnny and Pete. We've had to protect their identities. Together, they'll show you how members of the world's most elite regiment fight and survive, and reveal just what it takes to wear this badge. What makes the SAS unique is their ability to act independently, to get in, get the job done, and get out before anyone realizes what has happened. In this series, we've seen them in a number of roles. But up until now, we've concentrated on the four-man team, the basic fighting unit of the SAS.
Now we're going to look at what happens when a full Sabre squadron goes into action, utilising the specialist infiltration and combat skills of the SAS.
The fictitious mission we've created is a special personnel extraction, in this case, to capture and remove a war criminal. The target, his residence in the heartlands of a fictional country with a terrorist-sponsored government. The operation will involve an insertion behind enemy lines, parachuting a patrol from air troop to recce the target. The rest of the squadron will infill by boat. After climbing and securing the cliffs, the main body of the squadron will advance to the target and carry out the abduction. For our fictitious mission, we're using a team of actors to make up the troops in the squadron. The SAS is made up of 4 Sabre combat squadrons. Each one is divided into 4 specialist troops: air, boat, mobility, and mountain. Air troop for silent, swift insertions. For this mission, we've added a new team member, Alec. He's a former Pathfinder, an elite parachute unit where a large part of selection and combat training is the same as in the SAS. Boat troop for assaults and insertion from water. Mountain troop, who reach the parts where no enemy would dare to go. And finally, mobility troop, trained for hit-and-run raids behind enemy lines. In our mission, they're also tasked with providing covering fire for the assault. John McAleese will be in charge of SF as they infill and exfil from the Oppo.
In this series, you come across a lot of phrases and terminology. Some obvious, some not.
Jimpy.
Pinky.
Ping.
Let's run through some of the ones you'll be hearing during this programme. Infill.
A means of infiltration.
Get in, do the job, get back out again.
Exfil.
A means of exfiltration from the target area.
Pinged.
You spotted somebody, you pinged them.
Coming from the radar noise. Ping.
Bumped.
Bumped. Contact.
Right, let's get on with it.
In our fictitious mission, air troop have been dropped behind enemy lines. Patrol Commander Eddie is first on the ground. He buries his parachute and then heads off for the first rendezvous.
I'm on location now, waiting for the rest of the team to come in. There's a gap of probably 50 to 60 metres between each person as they're coming in, so it will take them a little bit of time to move into this area, where I will pick them up. When they come in, I will then place them down in all-round defence to form a protective barrier around our first RV point.
It'll be some time before Eddie knows whether all his patrol have survived the drop. These men have had to freefall from 35,000 feet and land in a hostile drop zone. all at night. Just some of the skills expected of air troop. Every SAS soldier is trained to make parachute drops. It is, after all, the Special Air Service. This, for most part, involves static line jumps, where the parachute opens automatically on leaving the plane. Air troop, however, are trained to master the art of free fall as well as using a parachute. It requires altogether more nerve and skill. During his time with the regiment, this was Eddie's speciality.
The main difference between air troop and the rest of the squadron is we are trained as a specialist infiltration skill in high altitude parachuting.
There are two methods of high altitude infiltration. They are known as hey-ho and hey-low. Hey-ho, or high altitude opening, is generally the preferred option. After a short free fall, the parachute is opened. Using modern ram air parachutes, the soldier can silently glide themselves into the target.
Using the ram air parachute and the jet stream, you can insert across a border.
In hey-low, or high altitude low opening, the troop free fall from as high as 35,000 feet, only opening their parachute at around 2,000 feet. It's swift and it's silent.
The main advantage of halo is that when you land on the ground, you'll all be within a very, very short distance of each other. With hey-ho, you can end up being spread out a good distance across the country.
But before they even step out of the plane, they have to check and double-check that they've got the right kit for the mission.
Helmet, obviously to protect the most important part of your body, your brain. Oxygen mask. The reason for the oxygen, if you're jumping at 35,000 feet, obviously there's very little oxygen there. Okay. Gets very cold up there, so it's very important you wear gloves, good thermal suit, main parachute, reserve parachute in the top. It's got a little tag on it. If that's not there, don't jump with that parachute. It's main handle, reserve handle. This is where your equipment gets attached to. This strap is attached and pulls the oxygen bottle close in and tight to the leg. It's also used for holding the weapon in position. This equipment weighs about 45 pounds. When you've got a 120 pound Bergen on top of that, getting to the edge of the aircraft, pitch black at night, you've got to waddle to the edge and basically drop yourself off.
Free falling at 35,000 feet with weapons and a Bergen full of equipment would be suicidal if the trooper hadn't spent months training for it, mastering the technique.
What he's trying to do at this stage is create symmetry in all parts of his body. His head must be in an upright position. Because of the weight of his head, if he bends his head forwards and he's looking down, he will start to tumble forward. If he wants to turn right and face into the group, all he has to do is bring in his right arm, and his body will automatically turn round to the right. He can do the same movements by using his legs. If he straightens his left leg, he will then spin to the right. When he's jumping, if we're jumping from 25,000 feet in an operation, then we'll be wearing equipment. That is going to create more drag. So he will extend his arms out in the front of his body. If the Bergen moves position at any time, it can cause the free faller to start spinning. This is a very dangerous thing to happen. If you get into a spin when you leave the aircraft at 25,000 feet, you've got a long way down before your parachute's going to open, another 23,000 feet. By that time, you're going to be rotating faster than the eye can see. I have seen people landing on the ground with their eyes completely bloodshot because all the capillaries in their eyes have burst. So he must adjust his position to compensate for any movement in the Bergen. There is one other position you can use, which is cracking, and that enables you to move across the sky. A bit like Superman in some respects, but not quite the same. You're going to still hit the ground. And at 25,000 feet, he will be motoring along somewhere around 180 to 200 miles an hour.
When deployed, the ram air parachute quickly inflates. It then acts as a rigid wing. The trooper steers himself using left and right toggles towards the landing zone.
You want to turn left? Pull down your left steering toggle. What that does, it shuts off the air to the left-hand side of the parachute, causing it to rotate around to the left.
As he approaches the ground, he has a new problem to consider. When to drop the heavy Bergen. For stability during freefall and the parachute descent, it's been strapped to the back of the legs.
Approximately 1,000 feet, you'll be start looking for wind direction indicators. In other words, smoke coming out of chimneys, where there may be trees blowing, what direction the wind's coming from. He's got to land his parachute into wind.
As he comes into land, he slides his Bergen down to the end of his legs. To touch down safely, he has to release it onto a line. Timing is critical. If he lets go too early, it will act as a pendulum, causing the trooper to lose control.
10, 15 feet off the ground, he will flick the Bergen off his feet and let it land on the ground nice and gently. The reason for this is he may have equipment in there, like a laser target marker, or maybe binoculars in there that we require for the operation. If he lets it hit the ground at high speed as he's coming into land, it can damage the equipment in the Bergen. When you're coming into land, you guide yourself into wind, flare the canopy down, it will shut off the air, but the canopy will sit back. And you should land on the ground nice and gently, if you do it properly.
Finally, the trooper has to hide his parachute before continuing with the rest of his mission. Eddie is waiting for the rest of his air troop patrol to arrive at the rendezvous near the landing site. The men have had to find their way individually from where they landed. Our drop has been a success. All members of the patrol are safely in position. They take a quick admin break, sorting themselves out whilst maintaining all-round defence.
Right, listen in, lads. This will be our first ERV, yeah? Here.
On the way to the target, Eddie will designate a number of ERVs, emergency rendezvous points.
This is in case, en route, we get bumped by the enemy. In other words, we have a contact with the enemy. The patrol splits, then they can get back to the emergency rendezvous point where we can re-establish what we're going to do, select a different route, and head off and try and carry on with the mission. I'm going to head off. Point. Number 2.
The next stage of the mission is the TAB to target area.
TAB, Tactical Advance to Battle.
Going for a little walk, carrying the house in your back.
Each soldier is expected to have exceptional navigational skills, but to help plot the route to the target, they'll be using GPS, a global positioning system. It's a satellite-based navigation aid originally developed by the US military. It can pinpoint a user's location to within a few meters anywhere in the world. To do this, the handset needs a signal from at least 3 of 24 purpose-built satellites orbiting the Earth.
In this case here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 satellites showing. Gives me my grid reference. 222171. I'll get my map out. Okay, I've now located exactly where I am. I know where the target is. So when we set off on our route, that will tell me, after a period of time, how long it's taken me to cover a kilometre. So I can then work out from that how long it's going to take me to reach my target area.
The patrol moves out. Every one of them is an experienced soldier trained to use all kinds of navigational tools.
Don't forget, you must still be an excellent map reader. This is a useful tool, but you should never rely on it totally. Moving into an enemy position or moving into an area of operation isn't about head down, arse up and getting there as fast as you can. You've got to move tactically at all times. adapting different formations depending on what the country's like. When we're patrolling along, each person has their own arc of responsibility. In other words, they're covering a specific area.
Moving tactically is second nature to an SAS trooper. They know they could be bumped or compromised at any time when operating behind enemy lines.